that means what she was talking about is that all these texts were handed down to us in different languages. Okay. Now let's go into how we got this Bible in English. One of the things that Martin Luther was complaining about is that the Catholic Church was keeping the teachings of Jesus Christ to themselves because they do not have, all the Bibles were either in Greek or in Latin. The reason they're in Latin was because after, some of them were written in Hebrew and in Greek, and then after that, the Roman Empire started the Latin. So everything was in Latin, and the Catholic Church had all the Bibles in Latin. But that was not true, because the early translations, the languages of the Bible, first it was, on the Old Testament it's Hebrew, then it was translated to Greek in the Septuagint. And then the Greek was translated into Latin, and that's what we call the Latin Vulgate.
The Greek was a universal language then.
Before the Roman Empire.
Right.
See? So now they had to translate it to Latin. Okay? However,
So most people spoke Greek at that time then, so they could understand at all.
Well, it was a trade language, as they say in history, because before the Romans, the people who ran the empire, so to speak, were Greek. So their language ruled. So it was
Yeah.
trade language, it was the education language, it was anybody who was
So
anybody
everybody
spoke
kinda
Greek.
knew what everyone was talking about,
Right.
was speaking Greek.
So but then when the Romans,
but then when the Romans came, they couldn't understand Greek.
Yeah.
So now they had to put it into Latin, and that was the Latin Vulgate that was started by St. Jerome. And then, that claim of Martin Luther that there were no translations was wrong, because there were Coptic, Gothic, and Syrian translations in the 2nd and the 4th century, and the English translations was as early as 700 AD, the Saxons. And in 1380, there was already an English translation by Wycliffe.
No,
Yeah, not a good one because nobody could understand it, because actually the English language developed only around the 16th century. And he was also a
Yeah,
heretic.
right. If you doubt how
Yeah.
difficult it is, read Beowulf in Middle English.
Then the printing press was invented in 1450. And from that time on, they printed the Latin Vulgate and the Tyndale translation from Greek to English. Douay-Rheims was the first Catholic in English. In 1611, you had the King James Version, because King James decided to get all these people. And then the New American Bible. Okay. The New American Bible is what we use today. Okay. And mostly, most of the readings in church come from the New American Bible. Pope Pius XII decided that for translation to be accurate, it has to be done from the original books. So that's either Hebrew, the Greek, or the Latin books. The original, so that they can study what the idioms were during that time and what the meanings of the words were. No translation, most of the translations come from the Latin Vulgate into English, and from Douay-Rheims into more understandable English. But Pope Pius XII said, no, let's go back to the earliest manuscript. And so, in 1970, under the reign, what do you call that reign, or term, of Pope Paul VI, 1970, that's what they say here most of the time. In 1970, they came out with a New American Bible. This Bible I've had since, that's why I questioned that 1972. Because this was printed in 1971. From the time the New American Bible came out, I had a copy. Okay. And this is what Pope Paul would say. And I think it's in all your Bibles now, that the first letter of Pope Paul VI is there, that this is a translation so that people would know what the teachings of Christ were. These are my footnotes. I keep this because I've had several Bibles, but this was the first New American Bible that came out, 1971. Okay? Now, nowadays, what's coming out? Oh, there's the Bible of St. Jude. Oh, there's the Bible of Mary Magdalene. The Gospel. It is true. Why are there only 4 Gospels? In my research of it is because in this 4, first of all, 4 is supposed to be the number. I will come back to you on that question of your numbers. I was able to get it. 4 is supposed to be the earth, 4 seasons, 4 winds, and so forth. And so, there are actually 5 Gospels that were approved as inspired and as teachings of Jesus Christ. But they put the 4, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But Luke had 2, and the 5th one was the Acts. But most of the narration in the Acts is actual teachings of Jesus Christ that the apostles were doing. It was mostly the apostles. So they had those 4 Gospels. Notice that these 4 Gospels contained the teachings. The Gospel of St. Thomas, you must have heard a lot of that, which includes part of Jesus' childhood and so forth. The Gospel of Mary, there's a Gospel which includes the childhood of Mary also. These were all mostly narratives. There were not teachings involved. So they felt that even if it was inspired work of God, it really had no teaching value. So they did not include it. First of all, they felt that narratives are really maybe not the work of God. Because there are some things there about how Joseph became the husband of Mary, how he was chosen, and so forth. It has nothing to do with the teachings of Jesus Christ. So they included only 4 the Gospels. And so that is how our Bible now is.
Can I take up again?